I'm here today with Nick Magro, engineer for Triangle Manufacturing. Nick has had a very interesting past couple of months working on a Lean Six Sigma project. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about that. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So you touched on it. I've been working for the past couple of months on my Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. I actually pursued it through Rutgers School of Business at their Camden location. And it was a virtual class that I did online. It was about every Tuesday after work at about like 6 o'clock. And the class was great. I did about 8 sessions of it, where we kind of went through the fundamentals of Lean Six Sigma and what it's all about, the tools that we use basically for the entire process. And for those who don't know, Lean Six Sigma is basically like a structure of tools that you can use to kind of help yourself in your personal life, in work life, just improve a process basically. So Six Sigma is more statistics of if you have a process and you're exceeding 6 sigma, you have a very robust process. So that's kind of where that name came from. And lean, of course, is just to kind of lean things out to make them more efficient. So I went through the course, and it was very, very informative. The professors I had were excellent, and they really taught you all the tools you need to know and the tools you can use to apply everything to a project. And that was part of the thing I had to do, was to get my full certification, was to put it to a project. So we started off with the class, and then you would take a test, and you would be trained as a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. But then I transitioned on to the project. Mm-hmm. So the project I worked on here was great because not only did it help me get the certification, it also benefited Triangle, because I actually applied it to something that needs an improvement here.
Sure.
So the project that I put it towards, we at Triangle make some spinal implants, and there's one component in the assembly that it goes into where we're measuring certain features on there that were very, very manual and labor intensive to measure, and it took the operators like many hours to measure them, and it was causing some issues for bottlenecking and things like that. And I had worked with these parts since the beginning of my career as a co-op, actually. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was an issue, and I knew it needed to be improved upon eventually. So when I was choosing a project after going through the class, I knew this was going to be a perfect fit, basically. So the goal was to get the manual inspection away from, the overall inspection process and put it into something more automated. So we have a new vision system that we acquired here at Triangle about, say, a year and a half ago. And the goal was to get those parts onto that vision system, to, take all the operator input out of it, decrease the amount of time that it takes, and just make the overall process of the inspection way more efficient.
Wow. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot. I thankfully was able to get through most of it so far. I'd say more than half of it. And I presented it to the board at Rutgers for the Lean Six Sigma board. They were very pleased with what I put together so far. And yeah, there's still more work to do. There's many variations of those particular parts. So, once you make one program, you got to make 40 more after that. So it was kind of just to test the concept and make sure it was going to work for us, basically.
Sure. And I was actually there for your presentation, and was quite impressed, not only with the work, but you were very natural in your presentation skills, and the impression that I got from the professors that you were working with is that they were quite impressed with your work, and so that's awesome.
Yeah. It was very good to get the experience for. And it's not something that just people in manufacturing engineering can get. For example, in my class, we had everybody from administrative workers who work for the state of New Jersey to we had a gentleman actually who was someone who worked in a call center for Audible, the audiobook company. it can apply to everything, really. The certification is not just for manufacturing; it's not just for engineering, which was very relevant to me. When we had the class and we introduced ourselves, who was in the class. So it's definitely something that I think, for people who work in the corporate world and want to improve upon something that they do monotonous tasks every day, it's definitely a class or something to go towards.
So maybe expand on that a little bit and help everybody understand a little bit more of the minutia of, and maybe they can identify with a little bit more if they're not in manufacturing or engineering. What are some of the things that someone can do in their day-to-day with these tools in order to improve their workflow, their throughput, their efficiency? What are some of those things?
Yeah, so one of the main ideals in Lean Six Sigma is a process called DMAIC, which is an acronym for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So basically, when you want to initiate a project and whatnot, you have to go through each one of those steps. So define is obviously, what's your problem? What's your scope? What do you really want to focus on? Measuring is getting metrics on your project or what the issues are. So in my case, for the inspection, it was too much time. It was taking way too long to do that. So, you go out and you gather data to understand and measure what your problem is. Then you move on to analyze, where you really pinpoint your root cause if you need to, and then you get into your improved state. So I would say for engineering, it is easier to gather some of that data because we're a very data-driven kind of company and industry. So for some others, it might be a little more difficult, but it's not impossible. Everybody can apply it to anything they do. So, once you follow those steps, you go to the improve, and then it's, how you going to control it. One of the things I mentioned in the presentation was the control phase is how do we prevent ourselves from going back to the old way it was. And here, being in a medical industry, we have a lot of controls. Yeah. So it's not like it's going to go back to where it was. But for some other industries, maybe it'd be a little more difficult. So you have to put some kind of procedures or controls in place to keep that benefit that you got out of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you were going to apply something like that or let me ask it a different way, might you consider applying something like this in your personal life? And if so, what kind of things would you do?
That's a good question. I kind of try sometimes to turn off my worker brain at home, but sometimes I can't avoid it. So my mind is kind of always moving. But I mean, you can apply it to anything. If let's say you're cleaning your house or something, and you have to walk, downstairs to grab a mop, and then upstairs to grab, the water or something like that. Very dumbed down version. You could, put those two things together or put them in the same location of, simplifying the amount of, work you have to do to get to your goal. So, it can apply really to anything. Everybody in their day-to-day life has problems, or they have things they work on. They're always making decisions. And just understanding the tools and the ideals in the back of your head just helps you in everything you do, basically. And it was cool, during the class, some of the things were kind of common sense of just like, you're like, oh, okay, I get that. That makes sense. But when you actually apply it to a physical project, you're like, you have an aha moment of, I get it. Now I know why I'm using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those aha moments are what makes everything worthwhile, right? Yeah. You've all of a sudden realized, hey, all this work that I put into this is actually coming to fruition and it's making a difference.
Yeah.
Getting back specifically to your project again, just for a second, you must have had some sort of goals or objectives as far as what kind of improvement you were hoping to get out of the time that it was taking to do the inspection. What were some of those goals, and how did you arrive at them, and did you achieve them?
Yeah. So one of the metrics that I gathered, during the project of we were taking anywhere between like 2.5 hours to 2 hours and 45 minutes to complete a full lot of inspection for the parts I was focusing on. And my goal was to try and get that inspection totally down to, I think it was like an hour and 15 minutes or less. I knew it was going to be difficult because that's a significant amount of time to knock off.
And where was it before?
It was about 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was trying to knock down more than an hour basically off the inspection time. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I had a hunch that it could happen. So, when I went through the process and I had the idea of the improvement in mind when I started, you're not really supposed to come up with the improvement before you actually start the project.
Sure.
But I had an idea in mind. And going through it, the specific features that were being measured were taking an inspector anywhere between like 5 and 8 minutes per part. And once I actually got to the improvement, I found that I was able to knock that time down per part to like less than a minute. Wow. So when you take an entire lot of parts that we're measuring and you multiply that, that adds up. Mm-hmm. So when I gathered my metrics, it was about an 80% time savings.
Wow.
And when I did a little bit more of the math and figured out hypothetically, with that savings, what we could be looking for in the future, it actually hit the goal of anywhere between, it was like a little less than an hour to about an hour and 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if you take an average, it's right about there. And it was cool to see it, come to fruition, to see it actually work, and see the time savings that you got out of it. And one of the cool things I was able to do was then take that time savings and kind of figure out, in a macro view of the more time we're going to save for the whole company, money we're going to save for the whole company, which was really cool to see how something so small like that can make a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, when it translates, small things like that translate to big dollars, it's a huge win.
Yeah,
absolutely, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and there are many levels you can go about it. So, for example, I went for a green belt. Underneath that is I believe a yellow and a white belt, which kind of gets you just the basics of it. Green belt is where you actually start to, facilitate a project or actually get, into it, the nitty gritty. Then there's a black belt, a master black belt, and a champion above that. That's where you get really more into the very detail-oriented stuff of Lean Six Sigma, where you're sponsoring a project, or you're helping a green belt, or you're building an actual organization within your company where you then train other people to be Lean Six Sigma certified. Mm-hmm. So there's many, many levels you can go about it. Green belt, I think, was a good place for me to start, because I felt like I could, facilitate those projects and have an understanding. But maybe in the future I'll go for that black belt. Who knows? Do
you have any sort of goals in that respect?
For the black belt?
Yeah.
Potentially. Right now I'm just sticking with the green belt for now. We'll see how it goes, and there's many more projects that I could apply those ideals to. Yeah. But yeah, I could potentially see myself going for that black belt in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be very, very cool. Yeah. I mean, I can see and see on your face and hear in your voice just the excitement around the improvements that you've made, the stuff that you've learned, the principles. And, I think that the sky is the limit as far as what you could potentially do with these principles and these tools.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's never not going to be a time at Triangle where something needs to be improved upon. Mm-hmm. So, it'd be great if everyone at least maybe at Triangle got, a white belt or a yellow belt, just to get an idea, just, dip their toes in a little bit of the mentality of it. But I was very, very pleased with the overall experience that I got out of it, and seeing the improvements. Yeah, it definitely, made me happy to see that I made a huge difference.
Yeah, well, you're a bit of a pioneer and spearheading this initiative for Triangle, and I do think it's a great idea that we pursue some level of, say a white belt or something with the entire organization. So we are speaking the same language, and we have a similar way of thinking and approaching projects and process improvement activities like this. So, I mean, it's where we need to head.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely really enjoyed it. I already got the wheels turning of some other things I could apply it to. But yeah, it was definitely a great experience to put that skill under my my green belt. And it was great.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's a great story, Nick. I hope that there's, a continuation of this process for you, and that it continues to produce some good results. And thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.